So the old fuel pump is out. The new one is going to go in, but not today. First of all, because I don't have the endurance I used to have and I'm exhausted. Second, it's going to be very difficult putting this back in place, much less aligning this gasket in place where it doesn't slip around and get damaged. Now, this must happen a lot because this kit has 2 gaskets that came with it. This is only one of them. The other one I have around here somewhere. I moved it.
You sure it's not
Somewhere
attached
safe.
to that one?
No, it's just one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some silicone gasket adhesive, put it on the pump, put this gasket in place, push it in place, and let it set up overnight. So tomorrow, when I go to assemble this, I can put it all in place without worrying about this gasket slipping around. Now, I've seen where folks will attach this to the engine block with adhesive in advance, and that's fine. That would probably work also. But in my case, I have some physiological or medical limitations where I ought not be looking up too high, much less for a long period of time. It causes me problems physically. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the pump itself and let it set overnight.
Okay.
There's all kinds of good gasket sealers we could use. I like using silicone. This is a brand called Permatex. They have great stuff. Now this is also a product called Form A Gasket or Gasket Maker. I could literally put this on here instead of a gasket, assemble it, and it'll probably be okay. But the fact is, this makes for a good gasket sealer also. So I'm going to put a little bit around the metal contact point where the gasket goes. It doesn't take much. And what this is sealing is engine oil and engine vapors inside the engine crankcase under pressure from blow-by gases from escaping and causing an oil leak. That's all it's trying to do. Keep the crankcase oil from leaking out, seeping out. If it does, it's a slow seep. It's not a big deal, but I prefer to have no oil leak as opposed to just a little. So, very, very thin coat is all it takes. Linda was nice enough to get me some paper towels, so after I have this on, I'm going to go ahead and smear it down before I put the gasket in place to try to get a somewhat thin coating all the way around and as even as possible. That's one of the secrets of making sure we seal a gasket well, is even distribution. The other is to put the cap back on the gasket tube so it doesn't dry out. That happens more often than I'd like to admit. So now, with one finger being somewhat clean, I use a gasoline infused rag to clean it off earlier. Now I can clean it off on this paper, so it's somewhat clean. And now I'll just smear this around to get a very thin coating. I don't want anything thick here. It doesn't have to be thick. I can tell by the feel how thick the coating is. So I know about how much pressure to put on here to get it as uniform as possible. And now there's a bunch of leftover. So for my next trick, I'll go ahead and smear that off onto one of these paper towels Linda got me. Did I ever tell you how much fun it is to work with Linda on these projects? Not just a pretty smile behind the camera, but very helpful.
That was my wave. Hi.
Ah, thank you.
Gasket.
She fetches parts for me. She fetches tools for me. Gets me gasket sealer, paper towels, rags. Picks up parts that I drop. All kinds of stuff. So now I'm going to press this gasket into place. I shouldn't get a whole lot of gasket sealer oozing out from the edges because I've already smeared it so thin. And then to make sure I have this in place pretty nice, I'm going to drop these bolts in place to hold the gasket. So it doesn't move around. And surprisingly, these gaskets are tight enough to cause this to need to be threaded. That might be why there's two different gaskets. The other gasket may not require that. There might be a larger hole. I don't know. I don't care. I kind of like this because it's going to help make sure the gasket's lined up and it's going to help hold it in place. Once again, press it down. Roll it around. And now it can just sit here tonight and cure. And tomorrow when I get back on this, we'll be ready to go.
Okay.